Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and this is gonna be my first ever ranking when it comes to my channel. And since I did Dark Souls 1 review, now I'm going to compile the list of all the bosses, not counting DLC, because DLC, of course, the hardest boss will be part of the DLC. So I'm not going to count that towards this game, but here we go. This is the easiest to hardest bosses in Dark Souls 1. Number 22, Pinwheel. Now this one's not a shocker to most people, but some people will say this is a boss. The reason why he's easy is because you have to fight him early on in the game, but I fought him later in the game. But that doesn't make sense to me, because why would you go through the catacombs of all places in the beginning of the game? That's one of the hardest places ever, and the second boss you fight close to the catacombs in the Tomb of Giants is a million times harder than Pinwheel. So it just doesn't make sense, because then you're going to have to backtrack a lot. It makes sense to go through this area when you have fast travel unlocked. So that's why Pinwheel comes in at 22, it's because he is super easy. One of the only bosses in this game that I didn't die once. He does make a bunch of clones throughout this battle, but the clones are not hard. They don't do a bunch of powerful damage, and when you get hits in to Pinwheel, he does take a lot of damage. Like, he is a boss that you're supposed to fight on early in the game, but why would you? So it just makes him so much easier than any of the other bosses in the Dark Souls series, to be honest, that I've played so far. I've only played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and I'm about to play Demon Souls. And this boss takes the cake as the easiest. Literally, taking him down is like a walk in the park, and he definitely comes easily in last place. So yeah, coming in 21, the Asylum Demon. This is the first boss in the game, and that's why he's this low on the list. He's not as easy as Pinwheel, especially when you first fight him, and this is your first Dark Souls game. He's pretty overwhelming. That's pretty much the same with every Dark Souls game. If it's the first Souls game that you're playing, then the first boss does become overwhelming. So I did die a couple times because it was my first Souls game. But when you replay it, he is super easy. Because when you go into his arena, you don't have to fight him right away. Sneak out the back, and then you go through this level. And when you get to the top, do a big stabbing attack from the top of this whole building. And when you do that, it takes a ginormous amount of damage away from him. And then it's just a matter about trying to take him out right then and there. And sometimes he'll do some swings. The swings don't do as much damage unless you're starting out, like in New Games Plus or New Games Plus Plus. He doesn't do that much damage. And then you just pretty much hack away at him. It's okay to get hit a few times. He's really slow, but he becomes very easy in the game. So easily comes in at 21. Now, let's move on to 20. The Taurus Demon. And if I butcher any of these names for the demons, I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce some of them. But this one is a little bit harder than the Asylum Demon. The first bunch of bosses that I'm going to mention are really easy. And he is no exception. You could also do a jumping, stabbing attack at him by climbing this ladder and then giving a few, and then just doing a ginormous stab attack. And it does quite a bit of damage, and then he's stunned. But he's not stunned for that long. So I'll recommend climbing the ladder again and just keep on doing this over and over again, and then you pretty much take him out. And if he's in the way of you getting to that ladder, run back to the end of the area, have him follow you, and then run, dodge past him, and climb that ladder again. It goes really fast that way, and it makes him very easy. But if you don't know about it, then there's going to be archers shooting at you while you're fighting this demon, so he might be harder that way. But in reality, you could just do a jump stabbing attack at him and he gets down really easily. So yeah. Now let's move on to number 19. It's Moonlight Butterfly. This one is as easy as Taurus Demon, like they're almost tied. But the reason why this one is pretty difficult is because all you could do is shoot arrows out. If you don't have any souls or anything, then you have to grind to get arrows. Or you could just wait until she settles and then hit her. But her attacks do more damage than Taurus Demon. Because each time I get hit by her attacks, it takes like almost more than half of my health away. Especially on the first game. So it makes the Moonlight Butterfly pretty difficult in that aspect, but she's really easy to dodge. But most of the time you're waiting for her to settle down. You can shoot arrows at her and stuff, but you have to make the right timing to hit her with the arrows. Because if you don't, then you're just going to get hit by her attacks. And some of her attacks kinda heat seeks, but at the same time it's easy to dodge. And she's not as far as from the Taurus Demon, they're like almost tied. It's because they're both easy. They're both in the category of easy. The Moonlight Butterfly is literally right after the Taurus Demon, a little bit farther down the road. But she is really easy. And when you first play her, I only died like once. But when you get a hang of it, you can beat her without dying once. And the reason why she's higher than Taurus Demon is because of the plunging attack you could do with the Taurus Demon, making him even easier. I'm figuring out all the aspects first before I give the ranking of why they are up there. And taking her down is a piece of cake, a walk in the park, and I recommend gathering a bunch of arrows. Now, let's move on to number 18, Dark Sun Gwendolyn. Some of you is like, why is he this low? But in reality, it's all about running and dodging. This is probably the least funnest boss in Dark Souls 1 by far, because all you're doing is chasing him down. He starts in this good distance away from you, shooting arrows at you, shooting like blasts at you. And they do a lot of damage. And you're just chasing after him, and then when you get to him, you only have time to hit him twice. But you do a lot of damage, depending on what weapon you have. And that's what makes him easier, is because there's pillars that you can hide to make sure he doesn't hit you with the arrows. The only thing the pillars can't block is the big, like, laser blast attack that could hit right through the barrier. Which, you would notice him about to do that attack, so you just dodge out of the way. And that's what makes this an easy boss, is because it's easy to dodge him. He's the easiest boss to dodge, easiest, like, he's not the easiest to take down because you're chasing him. He's really tedious and becomes really annoying. And so he'll definitely be in the top if I was doing the ranking of the most annoying bosses in this game. He'd be number 1. But with easiest, I have to move him down here. He's definitely a big step up from Moonlight Butterfly. This is where the bosses kind of get a little bit tougher. And he definitely easier than the bosses that's to come. Okay? Now, number 17, Bell Gargoyle. Now this boss is a pretty simple boss. You pretty much just go after him and attack him. But he's really easy to dodge, and when you get him down to half health, that's when it gets real. Now you're fighting 2 gargoyles, and it makes it pretty difficult to say the least. But he gets easy. He's really easy to take down, because the first one's at half health, so you could go after him. You will get some hits in, but you will take him down pretty easily. Depending on what weapon you have, his health goes down pretty fast. And then you fight the second one's had full health. Now you could put all your energy to that one. And he's really easy to dodge. He's really slow, so just beware of that. But it's really easy to notice him swinging his weapon around. So that's why he gets at this ranking. And the fire trick that he does, it's easy to just run behind him and get some good hits in. He has a bunch of open opportunities to get some hits in. Now let's move on to number 16. The Gaping Demon. One of the first ones that actually shows a cinematic cutscene, like a little one, before he shows up. And his entrance is pretty memorable. Like, when he shows up, you're thinking that you're gonna fight a crocodile or something. And then he gets bigger and bigger, and now the Gaping Demon. The reason why he's pretty easy, but also a little bit difficult, is because of his attacks. His attacks do a lot of damage. But they're really easy to notice him about to do them. You cut off his tail, grab a sword that way. Like when you cut off his tail, you gain a sword. And now he doesn't use his tail. His tail is the hardest part to dodge in the game. It makes it harder to hit him from behind. So that's why I'll recommend cutting off his tail first, and then start staying behind him, hitting him. He does have a move where he tries to hit you by slamming down, and then he starts moving forward really fast. Run after him, because at that point he's going to stop for a little bit for you to get some good hits in. And so it makes it very easy if you just follow those steps, cut off his tail, and then just wait until he does that move. But also you could just dodge him and just dance around him and hit him. On New Game Plus, New Game Plus, he's really easy. But on New Game, he's pretty difficult because you're still getting the hang of this world and how the bosses work. But he definitely comes in at this spot on the list. Now, number 15 is Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. The final boss in the game is probably one of the weakest final bosses I've played in the first 3 Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. And he's the easiest out of all the final bosses. Because if you know how to counter his attacks, like each time he swings, hit his sword, and then do like a big stab, it's really easy to do that. He's really predictable with his moves. Don't try to dodge him, because he does big combos. Don't. He doesn't do that much damage either if you did the right stats, if you have the right equipment on. He doesn't, because he does a lot of flame attacks. But when each time he uses his sword, reflect it or counter it, and then when you counter it, you have a good time to stab him. And you can just keep on doing that and that. If you get hit, it's fine. Roll away, heal. But make sure he doesn't try to attack you when you roll away and then heal, because you'll get hit in the process. If you're good at countering, this boss is going to be easy for you. I was pretty good at countering with this boss. Probably the easiest boss to counter in the game. Even easier than most of the enemies, because he's really predictable. There's a few attacks that you can't counter, so just dodge away, like his slam attacks and all that. But other than that, he's pretty easy to say the least. Now, number 14, the Capra Demon. This one gave me one of the most troubles in Dark Souls 1, because he was the first real hard boss in Dark Souls 1. But when you play through New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus, he becomes easier. This boss does have a glitch though. When you go up the stairs and go to the side, he can't really hit you. He can sometimes, but roll when he tries to jump at you. And then he will land on the ground. And that's when you jump off and do a slam attack on him. And then just get a couple hits in, and then just rinse and repeat. And that's how I took him down, because he's really unpredictable with the swings. And with the help that he has, makes it really hard, because he has a couple dogs helping him. And that's when you just run to the top, take out the dogs really fast, because he's going to swing at you while these dogs are attacking you. And he definitely makes it really hard to take him down. But playing through New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus, he's not as hard as you will think, but he definitely was the first real hard boss in the game, and I really appreciate that. But I had to put him at 14. It's because the bosses above this one gave me even more trouble. Now, coming in at number 13 is Crossbreed Priscilla. One of the optional bosses in the game in the Painted World. She starts out difficult. She's invisible, so it's hard to locate her. But if you look on the ground, it's snowy around. So you could notice her footsteps in the snow. And that's when you could take your swings in. Once you do a few swings in, she will turn on invisible. And she is one of the bosses in the game that if you cut off her tail, you get a weapon. She's the hardest to cut off her tail. She's literally one of the hardest to cut off her tail because she's moving around a lot. And I don't recommend locking on to do that. But if you cut off her tail is not really a threat at all in this boss fight. But if you want that unique weapon, because there is a trophy to get all weapons, she has one of the weapons. But her attacks are really easy to dodge. She does do quite a bit of damage because she is later in the game. But she's very easy when you get a hang of it. Her invisibility part is the hardest. But once you take that down, she's really easy to locate, really easy to dodge her moves. If you take too long to kill her though, she will turn back invisible. But she's very easy to take her down really fast if you have the right equipment, the right weapons. If you know her attacks, she's very easy in that aspect. She does have some difficult moments, but I only died like once or twice. She didn't really give me that much of trouble. But with her visibility and all that, I had to bump her up more because she was pretty difficult starting out. Now, coming in at number 12 is the Stray Demon. He is the same as the Asylum Demon that you first fight, but more difficult. You go back to the first world that you were in. There's a way to do that. I'll recommend looking that up because it gets pretty difficult to get there sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. But when you fight this boss is an optional boss. He's pretty difficult because of the explosions he has. But with his explosions, each time he moves his weapon, there's an explosion that happens next to you. And that's what makes him difficult. You could try to dodge the explosions, but it's really hard. But if you just hack at him, he goes down pretty easily, especially if you have the right weapon and the right equipment that could withstand the explosions and that could take a lot of damage. When you have the right weapon, his health goes down pretty fast. He doesn't show as much of a threat when you first show up, but when his explosions happen, that's when he gets pretty difficult because the explosions do quite a bit of damage. So heal up all the time, have a lot of potions ready, and then fight him. And if you just keep on hitting him, his health will go down pretty fast. He has one move where he puts his weapon down, which does the explosion around him, and then there's one where he puts his weapon to the side, which does the explosion to the side. And so if you're hopping around him, when he does his weapon down, dodge away. When he does his weapon this way, dodge the other opposite way that's at, and then start hitting him again. It makes it really easy to counteract his explosions. Now, at number 11, the Iron Golem. Now this is a boss that you have to do quite a bit of stuff before you go fight him. First off, go to above where that boss is. There's a stairway or a ladder, I don't remember. But if you go up to that boss, there's this enemy that throws a bunch of boulders or fire down at that arena. Take him down because it'll make your fight a lot more easier when you fight the Iron Golem. Because once you go to the Iron Golem, that enemy is going to throw fire down at you, making this boss extremely more difficult. But when you take him down, you can fight anywhere. That beast is dead. You can fight anywhere, and it makes it pretty easy to dodge his moves. He does do a crap load of damage. But when you dodge around him, he's really easy to dodge. Hit him a few times. It makes it pretty easy to do all of this. And so that's what I'll recommend. Taking down that monster first And then when you get into the arena, each time he's about to do a move, dodge. It's easy to dodge around him because when you try to dodge away from him, he has moves where he can lunge at you. And then that's going to do even more damage. So don't do that. So I would recommend just dodging around him, get some hits in when he's not trying to hit you, and then keep on dodging. Just look at your stamina, make sure you have enough to hit him, and then he'll go down pretty easily. Now, number 10, Demon Fire Sage. Remember when I was talking about the Asylum Demon and the Stray Demon? This is the third version of that demon. But he's on fire this time and does the explosions even more. This one, I would recommend just dodging the same way you dodge around the last demon's fire explosion attacks. But since he's on fire, he does more with that fire, and it makes it pretty difficult. He's another one that I always recommend just watching his explosions, dodging around him, get close to him, because if you don't, then those explosions will hit you and then they will keep on hitting you. He does explosions mostly when you're away from him. So I recommend staying close to him and taking him down. It's not that much to say. I talked about the Stray Demon, but this one's more up there and more difficult to fight. Now number 9, Chaos Witch Grolak. Something like that. This one is a pretty fun boss. Probably one of the most memorable bosses in the game, besides the one that's top hardest, that's on the top of this list. But she is one of the most memorable bosses. She does a lot of fire attacks, so get the fire ring, get fire armor, be built up to withstand fire. So when you go after her, you could withstand that. It would even be awesomer if you had the lava ring, so the lava doesn't do that much damage, but you get the lava ring way after this boss, so you won't have it. But I'm guaranteeing you it will be easier if you did. But this is not an optional boss, you actually had to fight her, making her one of the hardest bosses in the game, because she will spool out lava everywhere. When you're on that lava, your health decreases pretty fast. I would recommend not staying away from her because she does do some lunging attacks, and when she does those lunging attacks, she spits out lava while she does it. So I recommend staying close to her. Stay behind her per se, or try to get under her in a way and take her down that way. But watch out for the lava that's around you. If she starts spilling out lava, then get away from her, because the lunging attack is easier to dodge than those lavas that's around you. Because when you get hit by that lava, you're stunned. You can't roll away, you're getting hit, practically. So she has a chance to hit you with a move that could kill you. So I recommend staying close to her, hitting her a few times, and when she does a lava attack, get away from her. That's all I could really say. That's how I did it. You will die from this boss. This boss is pretty difficult, but really fun and really memorable. Probably one of the most memorable bosses in the 3 Dark Souls games. Now, number 8, the Great Grey Wolf Sith. Pretty big name for a wolf. This one was pretty hard to rank. I wasn't sure if he was harder than the Witch or than the Fire Sage Demon. So I had to put him a little bit higher, because his moves are pretty fast and pretty unpredictable. It's really hard to dodge him. You could get under him and get some good hits in, but he's really good at jumping away from you and then doing like a slam down attack with the sword that's in his mouth. He's a huge wolf. Definitely the hardest wolf enemy out of the 3 Dark Souls games, and I know Dark Souls 2 has some, I believe, if I remember correctly. And definitely the hardest of the bunch. The DLC of Dark Souls 2, I believe, has a wolf enemy, but not as difficult. I believe you do have to fight him to get a good ass item, and I think one of the items is to fight the 4 kings, which I'll get to that point in a moment. But he's definitely cracks the top 10 as one of the hardest bosses in Dark Souls 1. Now number 7, Ceaseless Discharge. This boss, screw this boss. This boss is terrible. I don't like this boss at all. Definitely not the worst boss in the game, but he's pretty damn difficult. He is the first boss that you fight in the fire area, the lava area, right before the fire sage boss. But the reason why he's difficult, because if you die, when you grab his armor, you could fight him right there in the big open. But I don't recommend dying at all, because when you die, you go back to the beginning of this area, which is not that far. You go all the way to him, and you go into that fog gate. He can hit you in this small ass area. You have to run back to that big area while dodging his attacks, and it's really hard to dodge it. And when you get back to that area, try to take him down. He does do a bunch of like fire moves and stuff. He does do a crap load of damage. But when he does that fire moves, he puts out his arm, hit his arm really fast, and then when he brings up his arms, try to dodge away. Because his attacks are really unpredictable. You don't know what move he's going to do because they all look the same. So be careful with what he does. But when you take him down, it's really satisfying, and now you could explore this whole area. Now, number 6, Seath the Scaleless. I believe that's how you say his name. But he's pretty difficult to say the least. He could curse you, which if you get cursed, then you go back to the beginning, you pretty much die, but your health is halfway. And now you have to go find this healer that could get rid of your curse, which is only 2 which you could get a stone, which costs a lot of souls to get, or you could go to this guy that's right after the Bell Gargoyle. And then after the Bell Gargoyle, there's this guy that could cure your curse, but with a lot of money too. So I don't recommend doing that. I would recommend getting a curse ring. And this curse ring will decrease the amount of curse that you could build up. And it makes it so much easier. Always have this curse ring on. And then when you fight him, his moves do quite a bit of damage. But he does have this icicle one, which depletes your health slowly, but also tries to curse you at the same time. That's it. If you have the curse ring, I would recommend getting some hits in, and then dodging away. I don't recommend getting behind him, and he's one of the hardest bosses to cut off his tail too. And you do get a sword with him when you cut off his tail. And that's a sword that you need to get all the trophies. Which I did. I got all the trophies for Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. But Cease the Scaleless, don't go behind him because he's just going to turn around. It's impossible to try to get behind him. The only time you have a chance to cut off his tail is when you stun him by going behind him to destroy this crystal. This crystal is how you could do damage. If you don't destroy it, then you can't do any damage to it. But once you destroy it, he gets stunned, go behind him with a really powerful weapon and tries to cut off his tail. Because after that, it's going to be really hard to try to get that chance. Trust me, I tried. He turns around really fast, and when you try to get behind him, you're just wasting time, and that's how he gets you and hits you. So I recommend staying in front of him, getting some good hits in, dodging him when he tries to do some powerful attacks. But his attacks don't do as much damage as most bosses, but they do quite a bit. It's mostly the curse buildup that I will recommend watching out for. Now, number 5, the Four Kings. The top 5 are absolutely the hardest bosses in this game, hands down, the ones that gave me the most trouble. So, here we go. Number 5, the Four Kings is, oh my gosh, difficult. He's an optional boss. Once you beat him, you get to go to this covenant. And this covenant, I forgot what this covenant does, but it's probably the best covenant to find. And you can also take that route to fight the final boss. But the Four Kings, to beat them, there's 4 of them. You first see one in this pitch blackness of a level. And when you go after him, you start getting some good hits in. And when you do that, another one's getting closer and closer into you. And that's what makes this boss difficult. Because if you don't take the first one down fast, now you gotta fight 2 of them. While one of them is doing magical powers at you. So take them down really fast. And once you take all 4 down, then this one little bar of health will go down all the way too. But try to fight one at a time, taking them down really fast. The magical powers do a lot of damage. So try to heal. But they're really slow at doing it. It's more difficult when you take too long to take one down, and then another one shows up, and now you have to fight all these bosses at once. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. When you do take one down really fast, you have to run through this pitch blackness to try to find the other one. And you're such a good distance away sometimes that they're doing some magical powers at you, and now you have to dodge all this to get closer to them. So he easily comes in at number 5. The bosses above this one are more difficult than this one. Number 4, the Centipede Demon. The 3rd and final boss that you fight in this lava forsaken level. Right after the Fire Sage boss, you fight this one. I would recommend cutting off his arm first, because you get a lava ring for you to be able to traverse through this lava, taking like barely any health away from you. It's really recommended because later in that level you have to run through lava a bunch. But I forgot there is another boss in this level that I'll get to, but this is definitely the last lava type boss that I see. But he starts out in this really far area. I would recommend running through a little bit of lava, take some damage, it's fine, into this bigger area, because you go to the end of this whole area, and then this Centipede Demon will go to you, and when you go closer to the lava area, like the lava part, he will stay on the lava and starts hitting you with his arms, head, whatever. He will start being like a slinky hitting you. And that's when you will go backwards. He will get closer to you. And when he's on that platform, dodge his head, dodge his arms. I don't remember which one he's throwing at you, but he's throwing some part of his body at you. Go underneath him or go to him and start doing some good hits. He does have a big jumping attack and slamming down attack, which makes him pretty difficult sometimes to try to get some good hits in. That's why he comes out at number 4, because he still gives me some troubles even in the New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. So I recommend taking him down in that big open area and try to dodge his moves as best as you can. Now number 3 is the Bed of Chaos. The most worst boss in Dark Souls history that I've played. He's really difficult. When you get closer to him, he starts swinging his arms around, and his arms do so much damage and it knocks you backwards, so it's really pointless to try to do that. You have to go to this side, to the left side, right side, doesn't matter which side you go to first. And go into this like sphere looking area and take down one of his life forces. And when you do that, when you run to the other side to take down his other life force, the floor starts giving away. So you fall a bunch in this boss fight. And when you take down that one, that life force, you run back, the floors are giving away even more. And the hardest part, when you get back to the beginning, he starts shooting some laser stuff at you, some powerful attacks at you. And when you get closer to him, you have to run to the middle. When you run to the middle, that's where his final piece is. But he's swinging his arms around a lot, so I'll recommend when he swings his arms around, run right after when he's done doing that and jump into that area. And then when you go into that area, you run deeper into him practically and take down his self, which he has the least amount of health. A difficult boss with the most least amount of health. And it's just a really pointless boss. He's one of the 4 bosses that you have to fight to get to the final boss. Now, number 2 Grave Lord Nito. Whew. Don't like this boss at all. He gets pretty fun here and there, but when you fight him, if you're not close to him, he does some powerful attacks from underneath you. And when you get hit by it, you fall to the ground and you're stunned for quite a bit. When you go after him and get some good hits in, there's a bunch of skeletons coming up, and he gets the most health out of all the bosses. He has these skeletons helping him take you down. And so he becomes one of the hardest bosses in the game because of that. He tries to take you down with these skeletons. He has some powerful moves himself, but when he does his explosion move, it takes you down too a little bit. It does some good damage, but it destroys all the skeletons around him. So that's a good move, but also a bad one. So I recommend trying to dodge away from it when he tries to do it. And then you have some good chances to take him down when those skeletons are down. In New Game Plus, New Game Plus Plus, he's more easier, but he's the boss that's right after Pinwheel. The easiest boss in the game, and then one of the hardest bosses in the game is after him. That's why I don't recommend going through the catacombs right in the beginning. That's why Pinwheel is the easiest. And this one's one of the hardest because he's in the Tomb of Giants, which is right after the catacombs. So you have to have fast travel or you're going to do a lot of backtracking. And he is so difficult, especially with his moves, and he becomes number 2 in this list. Now before I give you my top pick, please hit that subscribe button. I'm still new. I wanted to do a ranking, and I really believe this one's a pretty good ranking to do. I'm going to do the same with the other Dark Souls games with the bosses. Here is my number 1 most hardest boss in the game. The only boss that I actually had to use a summon to try to defeat is Ornstein and Smog. Now this boss is the hardest boss in Dark Souls 1 because it's the only boss that has 2 bosses you have to fight at once in Dark Souls 1. And so that makes him pretty difficult. Now there's 2 of them. When you take down one, that one gets more powerful and does it like a second phase, where that one's more powerful than his previous self. So this one's 2 ways you could go about it. You can either kill Ornstein first, which has the most health compared to Smog. And then Smog will get more powerful. But when Smog's more powerful, he's more easier than Ornstein when he's more powerful. Because he's practically the same, just his hits do more damage, but he's easier to dodge. But when you try to fight Ornstein first, Smog might come out of nowhere and hit you, and his hits hit like a truck. Or you could go after Smog, which has the least amount of health. You're going to take him down faster if you go after him faster. But Ornstein's second phase is more difficult. You do have to get all the weapons, so you have to fight this boss twice anyways to get all the weapons. So you have to play New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. Because you have to get both of the souls. But if you kill Ornstein first when he's more powerful, you get his soul. If you kill Smog when he's more powerful, you get his soul. And then you can get weapons by trading those souls in. But Ornstein, when he's in his second phase, he does more lightning attacks. He's a giant now. He's really fast. He's really difficult. But when you fight both of them at once, Ornstein is the most troublesome because Smog is really slow. It's really easy to dodge his moves. But Ornstein is like, zoom, trying to get the first hit in. And so this boss makes him so much more difficult. This boss is so much more difficult than all the other bosses because of his 2 tag team. And that's what makes him so difficult. I did use a summon to take down this boss because he's that difficult. But I had to fight this boss twice because I needed 2 of the souls. And I got all the trophies with this game, so that makes me happy. Same with Dark Souls 2 and 3. I'm about to play Demon Souls, so yeah, do you guys like my picks? What is your easiest to hardest boss, or what's your hardest boss and your easiest boss in Dark Souls 1? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please subscribe. Other than that, this is my ranking for Dark Souls 1, and later I'll do Dark Souls 2. This definitely made me out of breath, so I'm gonna do that video later. And I'll see y'all next time in the next video. Peace.